So guys, I want to do another video and talk about my thug birthday. And what happened was that I remember like one time when I was in college, they have this rule where they force you to go home and spend time with your family on the holidays. And the reason why they do that is just because they want to be cost efficient. Like I remember like they would do things like they'll unplug people's refrigerator. So sometimes you'd come back and have moldy and rusty food if you had a bunch of canned stuff in your refrigerator, just because they just wanted to be cheap and be like, oh, well, you know what? We need to just save money, really. I remember like one time losing hundreds of dollars of, stuff, really. And I had some friends lose like, medication or things they refrigerated because the college just wanted to be cheap like that. But also like I went to school up in Vermont, really. And when I was in school in Vermont, they had like the Canadian holiday, and I think it was like they called the Canadian on Thanksgiving, which is in early October, really, around Columbus Day. So what happened was they forced us to go home. My birthday's at the end of September, really, so I celebrated my birthday with my parents. And I remember like we went to like this restaurant in New Haven, and my dad said it was a really nice bar or whatever. And I remember like there was always like this. It was a really bad crowd because there was a lot of people getting drunk and acting kind of ghetto and everything like that, really. And my intuition grew up, and I was like, oh my god, I'm around the thugs and the niggas, really. And like I've said before, that if I went into a place in Tennessee, I like going to Tennessee, and there's a bunch of like white trash people, and they're all like messy, and you just look at them and you just know a bad group when you know a bad group, really. You know a group of people you don't fuck with, really. It's almost like if you went to prison, it doesn't matter the race, it has more to do with how people come off, really. So I remember like my father I remember like just like eating my burger, and I had a bunch of like just like, okay, how's this gonna happen? And also my parents are a gay couple, so imagine going into like the most ghetto bar in New Haven, and there's two gay white guys who are completely oblivious to how they come off, really. It's like while we're minding our own business, that's also not a good look, really, because there's plenty of places that you can get killed for that, or they see an interracial family, you can get your ass whooped. So I remember like my dad, like they're kind of being loud and they're cursing. My younger brother was there, and my dad was like shh, shh, and other things like that. Like again, if people noticed, he probably would have gotten his ass kicked. And I remember like one time I was eating my burger, and my dad was like, Byron, how was your burger? So almost like drawing attention, really. So it's almost like how some people don't get that you feel uncomfortable, and how some people just don't, or some people have that mentality too of, and I've known some people who do that too, is that they'll bring their kids to a bad area of town, really, like, okay, we're gonna party, we're gonna have like a good time, we're gonna have a good rocking time, really. Or some people would bring their daughters to a bad neighborhood, and they're like, okay, we're gonna have a party, we're gonna have a good rocking time, and they're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna dress my daughters up in small skirts, they're gonna have a good time, show off those sexy legs and whatever, really. Because you get what I'm trying to say, like how some people have a mentality of not getting the other people are uncomfortable, or they don't have conversations with their kids with with how they feel or whatever, really. Or like as I kind of said too, that I remember when I went to Provincetown with my dad and my family, my little brother would always be trying to hug my hand. Well, we're trying to be hold my hand, hold my hand, hold my hand. And I remember all the gay couples doing this. Because they're probably thinking that, maybe me and my brother want to be a gay couple, really, type of thing, really. But you get what I'm trying to say, like how some people, they may look at a situation, and they may not, they may look at a situation and they may overlook at how you're uncomfortable, or they may look at a situation where you've been in situations like this. Because I remember going to middle school in a very like urban inner city. I remember going to summer camp a couple of times, really, and I also remember being almost being beaten up by thug and ghetto people all the time, really. When I grew up in New York City, or when I worked at Conway and Southern Connecticut State University, you're always around. You just know how some people react to certain situations, really. But I remember like how I didn't really enjoy myself, and that's one of the reasons why I don't celebrate my birthday with my family, because it's almost like, my brother got married like, last 2 years ago. Congratulations to him. But imagine if, I think he lives up in Hartford, but imagine if I said we are gonna celebrate your birthday and like we're gonna have it at a church in Hartford in a really really bad neighborhood, or we're gonna do something like, you know what, we're gonna take pictures, we're gonna do the ceremony where you and your wife are gonna walk hand in hand down a couple of the worst streets in Hartford to the church that we're going to, because we want to save some money. We want to just throw rice at you and just have this big celebratory thing, like, hey everybody, look what's going on. Really, do you think my brother would like that? Do you think that his white bitch would like that as well, really? Or do you think that my parents would like that? Be like, oh, well, we're going to do that, right? We're going to draw attention in a bad neighborhood. I live in Connecticut. I don't live in Chicago, but it's almost like, would I want to go to the south side of Chicago and do that? Or if I'm celebrating my birthday, I'm going to celebrate my birthday in Memphis. Do you think I'm going to go to East Tennessee with a big birthday, like with like a big, like, with like a big birthday cap and like wear a sash that says happy birthday Byron, and I'm just like holding a big, like, maybe a noisemaker and going to a bad neighborhood, like, it's kind of like what I'm saying, really, with how some people just, with how some people really try to overlook the danger that you're in, or overlook how it's in a bad neighborhood, or they want to celebrate your birthday however they want to celebrate it. And sometimes that can mean bringing you to, bad places, or places where there's a lot of danger, really. But I do have to, like, admit too that, honestly, nobody was really bothering us. It was just, like, as I said, really, most people think that way as well, really. Like, obviously, you would not go to a bad neighborhood with your family to get food. It doesn't matter, even if you got good service. It doesn't matter, even if you have really sketchy, like, people who are at the restaurant as well, really. They don't bother you. Feeling unsafe is feeling unsafe, really. But it also kind of goes to one of the reasons why I don't hang out with my father. Or, when I used to ride roller coasters, my parents would force me to ride roller coasters, and my parents would always, like, yell, scream, and intimidate, or just, like, walk in front of me, so I would back into a roller coaster ride, and saying things like, what, people in Africa would just want to cut off their arms to spend a day in Disney World or other places. Because my parents had that mentality of, if you're uncomfortable, I'll force you to do that, I'll intimidate you, I'll bully you, or I'm going to overlook how you feel unsafe, really. And, unfortunately, it's giving me some antisocial tendencies, but it's also one of the reasons why I don't celebrate my birthday with people. Like, honestly, like, as I said, some people have really good intuitions, really, about where they're at, and some people just really don't, or some people just don't care, or some people are just, like, as I said, well, they may like a place, they may have had a good experience one time, but it's in a bad neighborhood. Or it may just be one of those things too where they're just oblivious. I just want to go where I want to go, really. So, like I said, like, I'm going to Memphis. So if I go to East Memphis for my birthday, I know that's a bad area. If I go to some of the sundown towns in Memphis, that's bad. I might be going to Ohio for a couple of days in early December. So, should I go to, like, the neo-Nazi towns, or I think there's some whites-only towns there. If I want to celebrate my birthday, or be like, I want to do an early Christmas celebration, or post-Thanksgiving Day celebration, or I have George Matza's Hamburger America. Do I want to go to a bar knowing that's in a neo-Nazi neighborhood, and there's a bunch of people look at me like, what's this N-word doing here? And other things like that, So sometimes it's bad when, sometimes it's really, really bad when, people just have that mentality of, they don't recognize that you're uncomfortable. They don't care that you're uncomfortable. It goes over their head that you're uncomfortable. And they're like, oh, well, be cool anywhere. There are places too in America where if you're gay or you adopt kids of another race, you will get killed for that, or you will get beaten in the shit out of that, or people would destroy the kid's birthday to send a message of, that your sexual orientation and that your and your celebration and your interracial couple thing, your interracial family is wrong, really, So sometimes, as I said, that, sometimes being Ruby Bridges is not right. The girl who fought against, whose parents forced her to go to school in a white neighborhood, and people were trying to kill her every single day, really. She grew up with a lot of, like, mental health issues and depression. And it was also because she had parents who would force her and probably beat her ass if she didn't do that. Take a bullet for the team, really. Or in my situation, like, how you got people who are like, oh, well, we're cool wherever. We're gonna like hang out wherever, and whatever, really. Because, like, as I said, really, if I had daughters and I wouldn't, and they just got home from like private school and they were wearing like those schoolgirl outfits, they're kind of skimpy. Do you think that I would take them to Japan on a trip, really, knowing that there's an issue of men grabbing the asses of girls of all ages? Do you think that if I had young daughters and they were like, preteen, 17, 18, and they looked very attractive, do you think I would want to celebrate their birthday in a neighborhood with a bunch of thugs and a bunch of hood niggas when they're like, when I know these people would hit on them and whatever, really. Like, I remember, like, one time I worked at Southern, there was this bounce castle, and there were a bunch of college girls. I remember, like, there was a bunch of thug employees just, like, watching them jump the air, watching their butts, looking at their butts and whatever. But, again, that's not just thug people. That's just all people. People of all races do that. But you get my point, really, like, about, like, how sometimes people can look at a situation or look at where a bar is at or look at the people around there and say, okay, you know what, even if there's some stereotypes, there's some place in the hood where you can get some good stuff, really, and everybody can go, and then there's some places where, shit can pop off, really. But, the important thing is that, we got to make sure, we all feel safe, really. But ultimately, too, that was my, like, thug birthday, really. I have other stories as well why I don't celebrate my birthday with my family, and I'll get that posted since this is my birthday month. But I would also kind of say, too, that that honestly, I'm happy that I'm like 30. I'm going to be 38 in a few weeks. I can make my own choices versus with a family that feels like they know what's best for me and just does enough, but just like adds to a bunch of pain.